And there's so many people who are complaining about being hungry and just like not being able to be satisfied. And then I look at their food intake and what they have, and it's just a lot of the things that are just going to leave them feeling hungry.
If your drink's over 200 calories, it's more of a milkshake than it is a coffee. And I think we might be calling out some people there, but it's very easy to have a 600 calorie Starbucks drink.
Now, intolerable hunger is the point where it's consuming it. Like every single day, you want to just like yell at someone because you're so hungry, you're irritable, you're distracted.
A lot of these things are scientifically made to actually make you want to eat more. Think things like chips, desserts, right? It's very hard to put them down because they're designed to taste good, to fire dopamine signals in your brain, and to make you want to just keep eating more and not putting them down.
That is not a good sign. That is something that we need to rework.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I am your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm in the house. And today we're going to be talking about something very dear to my heart. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and many people have been asking about hunger and how to see results when you're feeling hungry and how to lose fat and all that great stuff. So I truly believe this is a very important topic, just because this to me is something that holds so many people back. They experience a little bit of hunger and they think the world's going to end, or they get a little bit hungry and then they overeat. And I find so many people just don't see results because they don't have the right approach, and all of these 6 tips they don't consider or incorporate. And I want to start with one of my personal favorites. The thing that I'm still working on and am trying to get better at is just eating mindfully. So there's been a lot of different studies showcasing that you can actually overeat just from being distracted. We're watching a show, you're, let's say, scrolling Instagram, you're doing something, whatever it is, you're just not present. So a lot of times the way that our bodies operate is they just start to go on autopilot. So you just start to eat, and you're like, okay, I'm done, and like you're just not aware of it, right? You can easily consume calories and be like, what even happened, right? That's just from not being present. Whereas if you were to just simply slow things down, set your utensils down between each bite, drink water between each bite, start to incorporate some of these habits to allow you to be more present, really think of like, what's actually going on here? Like, what am I eating? Just that a simple act of being mindful, of being present, of slowing things down is one of the easiest ways to make sure that you're actually more satisfied and you're more full. And this is something that will actually start to trick your brain. A lot of people don't realize it, but you can absolutely trick your brain. Someone who's, let's say, driving in the car and they're rushing from, one sport to another for their kid and they're just scarfing their food down, I promise you, you will want more food afterwards. Someone who's sitting down, they're intentional, they're taking a few extra seconds with everything. They're like, wow, I'm more satisfied. You may even get to the point where you can't finish your meal. I promise you'll make such a big difference on your fitness journey.
Next up is just to actually eat better food. I've said it before, when you eat garbage, you crave more garbage. When you get in the habit of eating out or having dessert every single night, our body is so habitual with wanting the same thing, and it really gets in a habit of it. And just the same, the more you start to eat better foods, healthier foods, high quality foods, cook more, the more you start to crave that because you start to feel really good. You start to feel satiated. You're eating good stuff that agrees with your digestion and your stomach. And it really just makes managing hunger that much easier, because when you're eating something that has more nutritional density, more fiber, more value, more protein, it's going to leave you feeling more full. It's going to leave you more energized. And overall, it's going to make it that much easier to adhere. Just the same if you eat a lot of grease, a lot of sugar, a lot of things that are really compact and very caloric that aren't going to actually supply a lot of satisfaction as well as longevity from energy, you're quickly going to get hungry. You're going to crave more. A lot of these things are scientifically made to actually make you want to eat more. Think things like chips, desserts, right? It's very hard to put them down because they're designed to taste good, to fire dopamine signals in your brain, and to make you want to just keep eating more and not putting them down. Whereas it's very hard to overeat on chicken and salad, for example, right? It's very, very hard because you're going to get pretty full pretty quick. You're going to eat half the calories you would of the other garbage, and you're going to feel full because of it. And the best part is it digests nicely. You feel good. You have high energy. You don't feel lethargic. And that's where it does take time. But the more you can push to working towards the 80-20 way of eating, actually eating more healthy, hearty, whole foods. Even when I grocery shop now, I'm amazed at how I really rarely go in the center aisles. I really just get a a ton of produce, ton of fruits, ton of lean meats, and then I'll also look for some lactose-free dairy options that work well for me. And personally, that is where bulk of my diet is comprised of and where I have the most success. And just the same, it is okay to have fun stuff here and there, to enjoy it within moderation. But I think as a core, I like to look at my body as something that I want to fuel with the best food possible.
Yeah, and each phase is going to be so different, right? If you're starting off your diet phase and you're at about 2,000 calories, you have some room to go. It's going to be very different than someone who ends at about 1,300 calories and what you can fill up and the flexibility that you have. And I think the greatest example of this is if you have like a visual of two like really, like large glass containers. On one end, there's someone putting in Oreos, Smarties, random drinks, like just all this stuff. Like that thing will be very, very low. And let's say you get to about 1,000 calories. You put in like, Oreos and Timbits and stuff like that. It just won't be full. There won't be much food volume there. Whereas in the other end, someone's filling in spinach, carrots, lots of veggies, some fruit, and lots of protein. That thing will be like overflowing at the very, very top, and you've like reached the same amount of calorie amount, but it's just a very big difference as to how it satisfies you. And there's so many people who are complaining about being hungry and just like not being able to be satisfied. And then I look at their food intake and what they have, and it's just a lot of the things that are just going to leave them feeling hungry and not enough things that are going to fill them up. So this is such an important thing to incorporate. And next up simply is understanding the difference between tolerable and intolerable hunger. So I've said it many different times, but if you are someone who is starting a diet phase, if you're starting to lose fat, you're starting to build habits, there will be hunger involved. To me, there are ways around it, and a lot of these tips are meant to help you out with it in terms of food volume, in terms of slowing it down, but realizing that it is a part of the process, and typically speaking, it will be there, right? If you're someone who's been consistently overeating, for months or years on end, and you're at a point where you're like, I want to lose weight, you start to feed yourself less calories than it wants, your body will start saying, I want a bit more, Kyle. You were used to doing this for 2 years. You would always give me this extra dessert. I want more. And so knowing that that is going to take place, it's a normal thing, right? And that's where I think sometimes people are so scared of it. And I want to rework your mindset with this tip to say, it's okay. It is no problem. Most of the time you will get to the end of the meal, and because of the habits you had before, there will be parts of your brain that says, I just want a bit more. Like, can you give me a dessert? Can you have a bit more? Before bed, if you're used to having a nighttime treat, you're going to be wanting a nighttime treat. So knowing that that is a part of the process, you're not going to die, it is so important. Now, understanding the difference between, okay, tolerable hunger is simply to the point where you want a little bit more, you could have a little bit more, but you're going to say, hey, I'm about 80% full, I'm good. You can still focus, you can still function at your job, you're not irritable with people, you're good. Now, intolerable hunger is the point where it's consuming it. Like every single day, you want to just like yell at someone because you're so hungry, you're irritable, you're distracted. Anytime you get your hand on foods, like you just want to go crazy. That is not a good sign. That is something that we need to rework. And it's something that a lot of people just want to avoid, right? I think some people, when it comes down to like bodybuilders or physique competitors or like show type of people, they get to this point, but we want to try to make sure we're at that point where it's tolerable. There's little bits of hunger here and there, but it's not going to actually kill you. And so understanding it's a part of the process is a very, very important thing to consider when actually losing fat and trying to stay as full as possible.
I think actually revisiting hunger signals is such an amazing thing. Like even myself recently, I had to call myself out, and I'm like, I never really let myself get hungry. I'm always eating in anticipation. I'm always looking for my next food, and food is fun. It's fuel, right? It has such a purpose, but I think there's something to be said about being hungry, eating, and not eating till you're stuffed, eating till you're full, you're satiated, you're satisfied, right? There's no need to absolutely gorge yourself, and instead to actually pay some mindfulness to when you're hungry, when you need to eat, to be okay going to bed satisfied, and to understand as well when there's signals of hunger and where there's signals saying that, hey, maybe I'm just bored, I want something fun, maybe I'm dehydrated. And I think the more you can become in tune with this, the easier it is to actually hit your goals. The next big tip is to avoid just the junk and empty calories. So I mentioned this before, but if you're someone who's having like full sugar pops, if you're having a lot of liquid calories like juices, these are things that are not going to satiate you very much at all. They're just effectively quick liquid sugar. They're not going to have much food volume at all, and they're going to leave you feeling very, very hungry. They're not going to support your goals. And just the same with Starbucks, Kyle keeps mentioning if your drink's over 200 calories, it's more of a milkshake than it is a coffee. And I think we might be calling out some people there, but it's very easy to have a 600 calorie Starbucks drink, or to really jack up just your meal with having a juice with it, having wine with it, having alcohol. There's so many dangerous liquid calories, and you definitely want to minimize them in your diet. Especially for me, I don't really have many as is, but I'm extra aware of it as I get into a deficit. And just the same, if you're having cream and sugar in your coffee, you're having 3 coffees a day, that can add up quite a lot as well. So I think you need to have some self-reflection, really aim to minimize this, and instead to eat whole foods, have better sources, and be really intentional with where you get your calories from.
Next up, you want to make sure to have regular, consistent meals and be in a reasonable deficit. A lot of times I feel like people have their hunger all over the place is because there's a lot of unpredictability. They're not sure when their next meal is. There's a lot of confusion. You start to feel like you're going into starvation mode. You just kind of are unsure, right? And I feel like the best approach you can ever have is just find a routine that works for you based off of your schedule, based off of work, when you can comfortably eat. Have 3 good meals and you're good to go. There's no questions of when am I eating. There's no, worries at all. And I just see so many people they're all over the place. Like one day it's like, 1 p.m. The next you have a busy day and it's going to be 3 or 4 p.m. If you can find ways to make it a priority, your body starts to realize, hey, it is what it is. I'm going to be fed. I'm good to go. And I find this is so underrated. And even it's been said that having regular balanced meals and snacks can actually help stabilize your blood sugar levels and also prevent extreme hunger, which will avoid overeating. And this is one other thing I want to share as well, is that very often when it comes down to the overall hunger side of things, if you have your food volume in place, you're doing really well with everything, you're drinking lots of water, all this other stuff, you do have to make sure that the deficit that you're in makes sense, right? If you're someone who just says, I'm going to start to lose fat and I'm just going to go like from 0 to 100 real quick, and you drop your calories down like 2,000, at a deficit, which is crazy, you're going to be crazy hungry. Like it needs to be at a point where it's just comfortably, you lose about 1 to 1.5 pounds per week. You're at a nice slow pace. It's nice and consistent. You don't do anything crazy. I see a lot of people who are hungry because they're simply starving themselves. They're like, hey, I had all these really bad habits and now I'm just going to like cut out everything. And then they end up losing a lot of fat, but they also are starving. They're miserable. They lose a lot of muscle and they end up going backwards because once they introduce calories back in, it's a really bad approach and they're not sustainable. So you have to make sure that it's a good, consistent approach, and this really will make a big difference.
And next up is managing stress and getting enough sleep. And studies have actually shown that not getting enough sleep can actually disrupt your hunger signaling as well as your food satiety. And personally, as someone who's had a lot of like 5-hour, 4-hour nights lately, just been kind of crazy with kids, I always feel it. I notice I get hungrier way faster. I notice I get way less satisfied for my food. I notice I get crazy hunger cravings. And in general, just being well slept is such an advantage, especially if you have the choice and the ability. Sometimes it's out of our control, crazy schedule, kids, but even for myself, I make a point to try to get to bed at like 9:30 as early as I can. But sometimes things are out of our control. But if you're being really willy-nilly here, I can tell you from firsthand experience, it is that much harder to actually lock in, get in a good schedule, and really be in a good flow, because you want to be supporting yourself, especially when you're in a deficit, especially if you're feeling hungry, especially if you're having some change as an effect of that, and your body thinks, hey, like, what's going on? Why are you taking away my calories? And during this time too, especially if you know you'll be more irritable, managing stress can also have an effect that can really kind of dysregulate your central nervous system and cause you more pain, stress, annoyance. And naturally, a lot of us will use food as a coping mechanism. And I know that it's easy just to say, oh, just improve your sleep, never be stressed, but we can always make an effort, right? Even for me, if I know it's a little wishy-washy, I know I can get to bed on time. I know I can maximize the quality of that sleep. I know I can be aware of my caffeine. Like, as much as I'd like to have bigger coffee, I trimmed it down. Still an amazing episode. So I can be mindful of that. With stress, I can really pick and choose my battles. I can try to get in front of things. I can try not to add extra stress to my life. So you can actually support yourself, especially if you're in a deficit, especially if you're struggling with hunger, by balancing some of these things and also reworking some of your habits. If you're someone who responds to high stress with wanting food and you tend to overeat, or maybe you have a history of binge eating, try to rework that habit, right? Because these habits can be so deeply entrenched where anytime you feel discomfort, before you know it, you're on Uber Eats and you're like, how did I get here? So that's where you got to be really aware of that. Call it out and say, okay, I'm about to overeat because I'm actually stressed. This is not going to make me feel better. I'm going to waste money and I'm going to regret this tomorrow. And then when you say that, as silly as that is, it's easier to say, instead, I'm going to go on a walk. And you're not going to want to do it. You're going to drag yourself on a walk and you go, okay, you know what? I feel a little better. I got some fresh air. I thought a bit. I cleared my mind. I'm a little bit sad. I'm going to go to bed, feel better tomorrow. So these are just like some additional tips we wanted to give outside of the boring, the mundane, because once again, you can diet the hard way or the easy way. And we really like to help our clients with the easy way. If you want additional tips and you want to lose more fat in your journey and you want our free fat loss guide, you can get the download link for that. The first link in this episode, make sure to grab that. It's an amazing tool. We got like 30 pages there on how to lose fat. We break it down so it's really easy. There's no BS, no noise, just quite simply how to lose fat and build a better physique. So be sure to click that link and download it. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.